We are going to practice more with order of operations, but we're going to add in some negatives. So just as a quick review, if we are adding, so let's just say I've got something like 3 plus negative 8. If you are doing addition, subtraction, and you have plus and negative right smack next to each other, it's the same thing as saying 3 minus 8. Okay, so that's one thing that we wanted to keep track of. If we are multiplying and we have the same signs, the answer will be positive. So for instance, a positive 3 times a positive 2 is positive 6. A negative 3 times a negative 2, my signs are the same, will give us a positive 6. If I'm multiplying or dividing, I should say that, multiplication or division, if I'm multiplying or dividing and my signs are different, then it's going to be a negative answer. So if I have 3 times negative 2, that's going to be negative 6. Or if I have negative 3 times 2, that's going to be negative 6. So two numbers, different signs, negative answer. And these work for both multiplication and division. Okay, so, and I forgot one, sorry. If I'm subtracting a negative, so I've got addition of the opposite, I can rewrite as subtraction. But if I have 3 minus negative 8, minus a negative turns into plus positive. Okay, so this one would be negative 5, and this one would be 11. So we're just going to dive in. We're going to do some examples and pay attention to the signs. So nothing in this section is new. It's just that we may have some negative answers this time. So I have 4 and 4/9 plus a negative 5 and 1/3. So first of all, I recognize plus a negative. This is an addition problem, so this is going to change into subtraction. So as I change this to subtraction, I'm going to go ahead and change these into improper fractions. So 9 times 4 plus 4 gives me 40 ninths minus, and then I have 3 times 5. I've already taken care of that negative, so I've just got 3 times 5, and then plus 1 is 16, so I got 16 thirds. So in this case, my common denominator, 3 goes into 9, so my common denominator is 9. So I have 40 ninths minus something over 9. So how do I get from a 3 to a 9? I multiply top and bottom by 3. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Whoops. Okay, so 3 times 3 is 9. 16 times 3 is 48. So now what I have is 40 minus 48. 40 minus 48. 48 is bigger, so here's what I do in my head. And this may throw you off. It may help. This is positive, this is negative. So I just take the bigger minus the smaller, but take the sign of the bigger number. So in my head, I'm going to do 48 minus 40 is 8, but 48 is bigger, so it's negative. So I get a negative 8 ninths. And that's just one of those tricks that help math people do math quickly. Okay? So moving on, all we're doing is just a whole bunch of order of operations. So I've got 3 times 8 minus 24 divided by 3. So when I look at this, I see I've got multiplication, followed by subtraction, followed by division. So I need to do them in order from left to right. So 3 times 8 is 24, minus, and then do the division part. 24 divided by 3 is 8. And so now I've simplified it down to a subtraction problem. So 24 minus 8 is 16. Okay, so negative 4 times 1 plus 4 divided by 1. So again, I have multiplication and division. So I'm going to do, I've got multiplication, followed by addition, followed by division. And 1 is one of those cool numbers because you can multiply it or divide by it. It doesn't change anything. So negative 4 times 1 gives me a negative 4 plus 4 divided by 1 Well, 4 divided by 1 is 4, so I get a negative 4 plus 4, and so that ends up being 0. And in a second, we're going to explore some with 0 and talk about undefined and 0 answers, but for right now, we're just going to keep practicing. So I have a negative 5 times 4 minus 3 plus a negative 9 times 2 cubed. So look at your grouping symbols first. So I've got parentheses, parentheses, parentheses. So these are the ones that the parentheses are used for grouping purposes. The parentheses here are just used to indicate multiplication. Okay, and it makes it a little bit easier to see that plus a negative. And here the parentheses are indicated to show you where that 3 exponent belongs to. It only belongs to the 2. So as far as grouping goes, I've just got this one. So negative 5 times 1 plus, and then I've got negative 9. I can go ahead and do this exponent because it's not affected by what I did over here with the parentheses. So remember that this is 2 times 2 times 2, and that gives me an answer of 8. So now I've got multiplication plus multiplication. So negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. Plus a negative is going to be subtraction. And then I've got 9 times 8 is 72. So I took this negative with that positive, which is why I did minus, and then 9 times 8 is 72. So negative 5 minus 72 is going to be negative 77. All right, now we have bigger brackets. So 9 times 9 plus 5 times 7 plus 3. So I've got hard brackets and I've got parentheses. So I need to work from the very, very, very inside out. So the outside ones are the hard brackets. Keep going in, and I've got these inside brackets. Is there something I can do on the inside? Yes, I can, because 7 plus 3 is 10. So that gives me 9 times 9 plus 5 times 10. Okay, so now the reason behind those parentheses is multiplication. So I've got addition and multiplication, so I need to do the multiplication first. And now these brackets are nothing special. They just help you visually tell the difference quickly between an exterior set of grouping symbols and an interior set of grouping symbols. So I'm going to go ahead, just because it's easier, I'm going to write those as parentheses now. So that gives me 9 plus 50, which gives me 9 times 59. And 9 times 59 gives me an answer of 531. Okay, so we now have, you can do that one. All right, so I've got 257 into 0. Okay, so this is a division problem. 0 divided by 257. I could just as easily write that as 0 divided by 257 in fraction form. So one of the issues that we have is, can I divide by 0, or can 0 be divided in 2? So here's my little trick for you. It's a stupid little trick. Okay, pretend like that 0 is the top part of a little man with arms. Okay, and since that little man is right side up, this is a good thing. It is okay to have 0 in your numerator. That's going to give you 0 for an answer. It is not okay to have 0 in your denominator. It is not okay to have 0 in your denominator. So for instance, if I have negative 2 divided by 0, let's go back to the little man. My little man is now upside down. So he's unhappy. So there's his head, and there's his neck, and there's his arms. He's upside down. That's not good. So in this case, division by 0 is undefined. Okay, division by 0 is undefined. If something is impossible in math, we say it's undefined. I cannot divide by 0. It is impossible. So think about it this way. If I have 0 cookies and I give them to 257 people, I divide them among 257 people. How many cookies does each person get? They get 0. Okay, because I got 0 cookies. Now look at this one. So first of all, I'm going to ignore that negative because I know that my answer is undefined, and I can't have a positive undefined and a negative undefined. It's just undefined. But what happens if I have 2 cookies and I try to divide them among no people? That is impossible because I have cookies. So it's impossible to give them to no people because somebody has them already. So it's undefined is what it is. So 0 in the numerator is just fine. That's an answer of 0. 0 in the denominator is not okay. It is undefined. It is impossible. Okay, so let's try some scary ones. We have 3 times 3 minus 3 minus 5 minus 7 over 3 times 7 plus 7. Okay, so remember, grouping symbols also include the fraction bar. So I can look at my numerator as something independent, and I can look at my denominator as something independent until I get to a point where I can see if they interact with each other. So looking at the top, I see I've got a whole bunch of subtraction issues. So I've only got one thing of multiplication on the bottom and on the top. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that. My numerator has become, because this is separate, me multiplying 3 times 3 has no effect with what's going on inside. So I'm supposed to do inside parentheses first. Then move on to exponents, which there aren't any, and then move on to multiplication and division. But since multiplying this by 9 isn't going to affect anything, I'm going to go ahead and get that out of the way. So 5 minus 7 is -2. And then 3 times 7 is 21 plus 7. So I took care of the 3 times 3, the 3 times 7, and I went ahead and did 5 minus 7 is -2. So what did we decide a while ago? If I've got minus and negative, that's going to turn into plus positive. So that now says 9 minus 3 plus 2. So 9 minus 3 plus 2, I can work it from left to right. 9 minus 3 is 6. Plus 2 is 8. And in my denominator, 21 plus 7 is 28. So now I can see if these two things interact. Can I reduce this at all? I can reduce them both by 2. So this is going to be a 4 times 2, and that's going to be, actually I can reduce them both by 4. Sorry, 4 times 7. So any number divided by itself is 1, so my answer is 2/7. All right, so we have a -9 plus a -6 times a -6 divided by 12 over 3 minus a -8. Okay, so the question is, where does the multiplication and division happen? Where does the subtraction addition happen? What is going on? Okay, so I do notice I've got a -9 plus. Well, plus what? I've got a -6 times a -6. So these parentheses are right smack next to each other, so that indicates multiplication. And when I get that answer, I'm going to go ahead and divide it by 12. So I'm going to work that from left to right. On the bottom, I have a parenthesis between two operators. So this says 3 minus -8. Well, minus a negative becomes plus positive. So working through this, I've got a -9 plus, and now I'm going to concentrate on the multiplication. So -6 times -6 is 36, and I'm going to come back and hit that division by 12. 3 plus 8 is 11. Okay, so now I've got addition, division. So I've got to do division. So -9 plus 36 divided by 12. 36 divided by 12 is 3. So -9 plus 3 over 11. -9 plus 3 is -6 over 11. Okay? Now let's talk a second about, and then I'll stop and I'll keep going in a second video. Where can I put this negative? So I can write this as a -6 over 11. I can write this as a -6/11. So the negative is out front. Or probably the most improper would be a 6 over a -11, as long as there is one negative. So he can be in the numerator, he can be in the denominator, which kind of makes our skin crawl, or he can be out front. But notice that if I put it on top and bottom, that's the same thing as a -1 over a -1, which is the same thing as 1, because any number divided by itself is 1. So if you've got a negative, I don't care if I see it up top or out front, or if you're feeling bold, you can put it in the denominator. But that's just the way we don't really like to see it that often. Okay, so I'd rather see it either up top or out front. One of the two. And then we'll pick this up in another video.